As the bio parent, you can make it a lot easier by recognizing and acknowledging whatever that stepchild is choosing to call the step parent, acknowledging them in the same voice. It gives them more room.
Thank you for joining us for the Blended Kingdom Families podcast. This podcast is for blended families, the people who love them, and anyone who just wants to improve their marriage and family relationships.
BKF exists to break the cycle of divorce, equip marriages, and unite blended families with the truth of God's Word. It is our hope that today you will receive biblical guidance and practical resources that will bring unity and peace to create your thriving, healthy home. Let's jump in. Hey guys, we are back again at you this week. I'm still taking over the intro because I'm stealing Scott's thunder, but welcome to the Blended Kingdom Families podcast. We're glad to have you.
Yeah, you're doing really good with this intro stuff.
You know what? I am.
I think she brings a level of excitement that is new to the podcast.
It's new. It's fresh.
Yeah.
What else is it that you say?
I can be a little too robotic in some cases.
Well, you have that counselor voice. Scott has the counselor voice.
I have the DJ voice.
The DJ voice.
That's all.
Okay.
I used to be a DJ at some point in my life. So anyway, if you're just joining us, we would love, and we're so glad you're here, we would love if you would like, share, comment, subscribe. If you're listening on Audible, just know that the full video, beautiful format of us is on our YouTube channel. You can go and check that out.
Yes.
And we'd love to alert you to new podcast. So this is the third week in our series on blending, blending your bunch, where we've talked about so many different aspects. So if you're just joining this one, highly encourage you, go back, watch the last two.
Yep.
This is all in preparation for a book that releases in September called Blended and Redeemed that is releasing with XO Publishing. We're super excited about that.
Yeah.
And today we're going to dive into a topic. Again, all these topics so good, not talked about a whole lot.
Yeah.
They're generally one of those reactionary topics that you talk about like after the fact.
Yeah.
But we're going to kind of go into it, eyes wide open, and we're going to talk about what should your child call your step parent.
Yeah. So this one was a hot one whenever we did the Blended Kingdom project.
Yeah.
We had a lot of parents, whether step or biological, who expressed just feelings and emotions around this. And I think just taking away from all of that and just from our own experience, I think it's something that affects the biological parents and step parents probably the most than the children in some aspects. So our answer to this, and you may agree with this, you may not, but our answer when people ask what should the stepchild call the step parent is, we think that you should let them have a say in it.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're going to attack this from probably two different angles. One, we're going to do it from a step parent perspective, and then we're going to kind of close it from a bio parent perspective. And we're going to kind of weave in kind of the children's thoughts and processes throughout this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really is. And we talk about this, and we're going to talk about some scripture that goes along with this, specifically in Genesis. But we really feel like the child should have some say, and depending upon the age, if they're littles, they're going to probably call you whatever you're called at your house in a lot of cases. But, in our case, we try to give as much personal exposure in this is, Michael was 7 when we got married.
Yeah.
So, and he had a relationship with his father and that was Dad. So in my house, I'm Scott to Michael.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Which I think is really funny because when our other littles try to call me Scott, I'm like, that ain't my name.
That's not your name.
That ain't my name. But to Michael, that's my name. I want to read from Genesis real quick, where it says, God gave Adam the chance to name all the animals in creation because he wanted Adam to have some personal connection, some inclusion to the world he was living in. The same can be true for our children who are blended into a new family. So that comes from a paraphrase from Genesis 2. But really what I love about it is when God gave Adam that ability to create names, he wanted to create connection. He wanted Adam to have a connection with what was around him.
Absolutely. And to give us dominion.
Yeah.
I think that there was, he wanted us to have some inclusion with that. And I think with blended families and with our kiddos, giving your children the option or allowing them to have a say, is important for a couple of reasons. And one, from a counseling perspective, it takes a lot of anxiety and expectation off of their shoulders. We have to remember, you guys, their world has been flipped upside down, turned inside out, flipped upside down. They didn't ask for the divorce or for the circumstances of which now they're in a blended family. And so, whenever there is an expectation put on that you should say, hey, you need to call your step parent this, or you can't call them this, it can add an unusual and heavy amount of just stress and anxiety. And from that oftentimes comes parent pleasing. They want to please one parent by doing what they wish. They want to please the other parent by doing what they wish. But then it's oftentimes creating a lot of stress and anxiety within the child. And another reason why we think this is important is it allows them to take ownership of an important part of their relationship with their step parent. So we see that as a unique opportunity where the stepchild and step parent can build a unique relationship and develop their own relationship. Just speaking from experience, my mom was married 3 different times. And I remember her second husband, I called him Daddy Mike. I was very young. I was, 3, 4. But then whenever after that marriage ended in divorce, and then when my mom remarried my stepdad when I was around the age of 12, I called him by his first name, which was Michael, who we named my son after, Michael. But as I grew, and it wasn't until I was in college that I started calling my stepdad my dad. So he's no longer Michael, he's my dad because he's the man that raised me. And so I think the name game, so to speak, I think it changes with seasons, and it changes as your relationship. It can change as your relationship progresses with the step parent.
Yeah, I having been a step parent for close to 8 years, almost 9 years, I've seen a lot of transition through this. One of the things I want to point out, and it's something that we haven't really shed a lot of light on, but when it comes to the name game, the biological parent also has a part in its, what's the word I'm trying to look for here? They have a part in the influence of what the step parent calls the stepchild calls the step parent. There's a lot of steps, there's a lot of words there. But what I'm saying is this, is when you and I, or when you were having a conversation with Michael, you refer to me as Scott, not as dad.
Yeah.
So you don't say, well, your dad is this. No, you say Scott.
Yeah.
So it gives the child the freedom and the space to be okay with that name.
Yeah.
So it's not just what the child feels comfortable with. Remember, children are parent pleasers in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And they're looking at this going, how do I make sense of the world? As the bio parent, you can make it a lot easier by recognizing and acknowledging whatever that stepchild is choosing to call the step parent, acknowledging them in the same voice. It gives them more room. But as that has kind of progressed, and I just kind of want to tell a story here. When Michael and I were first in public together and we would go out and, we would be at the store or whatever that may be, there were always situations where people would say, oh, your dad. And I know for a lot of years, we would correct them. We would say, no, this is my stepdad, or no, this is my stepson. It was just, and it wasn't a bad acknowledgement. It was almost an acknowledgement to each other that we were respectful of that relationship. And then over the course of time, then people would say it, and then I think we just got tired of correcting people, or tired of saying it. So then it became just a look at each other, like, we know that that's not true, but we're just going to acknowledge each other. Oh, now it's just the point we just don't even recognize it anymore.
Yeah.
We just kind of go, yep, that's fine. And it just makes the need to explain much less.
Yeah.
So that name and that concept has changed over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, at the beginning, I talked about how this could be something that's maybe possibly more difficult for the biological parents and step parents. And what we saw through, again, the Blended Kingdom Project was, I think, just a lot of pride. Like, a lot of parents were like, no, I'm only mom, I'm only dad. And I want to share a story just about our specific situation. I shared this in the book, and it was a moment when I was going through our son's phone and I saw that he called his stepmom mama. And when I saw that, I just remember like my heart, it tore me up. I was like, I'm mom. I'm mom. You know, nobody else can be called mom. I'm mom. And I just remember in that moment, like the Holy Spirit, man, convicted me so fast and so quick. And I had to go into my prayer closet and pray about it. And I just remember he was so sweet to me in that moment as I just was, you know, just kind of throwing a fit in there about that. He was like, Vanessa, you know, it doesn't matter what Michael calls his stepmom, you know, that does not diminish your role or, you know, your relationship with him in any way. And then it brought about just a revelation of thankfulness and gratefulness, because I was like, God, thank you that they have an amazing relationship. Thank you that, you know, he feels safe to call her that. But it come to find out that's what she's called in her home, because he does have other siblings over there. Yeah. And if that's what makes him comfortable, and if that is what he wants to call her in their home, that, you know, I'm okay with that. Again, if you're a biological parent listening to this, just understand that whatever your child decides to call the other, you know, the step parent, it doesn't diminish your role in any way. And it doesn't take anything away from you. Because again, you guys, it's all God's. Our children are God's children first before they're ours.
Yeah. And I want to also, you know, encourage step parents that are out there. You know, if you find yourself in a situation, because I know how this thought process goes. Your step child all of a sudden calls you mom or dad, and you're like, well, that's kind of cool, but maybe that's not right, or, you know, how should I feel about that? How is their bio parent going to feel about that? Mm-hmm. You know, so there's anxiety around this concept that I have been labeled mom, dad, when I don't necessarily. That's not my title. Yeah. But that's what they feel comfortable calling me. So I would encourage you to have that conversation with their bio parent. So I know, you know, for me, I never ran into being called dad, but I do remember having a conversation with his dad saying, hey, listen, I just want you to know you're his dad. I'm his stepdad. I respect my role. I respect your role. Mm-hmm. I'm going to let Michael develop and do his thing, but that's my role. Mm-hmm. So if you find yourself in that situation where you're like, hey, I don't quite know, I don't want to cause waves in my blended family by what the child calls me, but I also don't want to tell him not to say that. Yeah. It may be a good opportunity just to have that conversation with their bio parent saying, hey, this is what they've decided. This is what I go by in our house. So that's probably maybe a good reason why they've chose to call me this. Yeah. I just want you to know I don't look at that as a replacement.
Yeah. And I think just having open dialogue about that, if you have an amicable relationship with your ex-spouse, you know, maybe all four of the parents, or, you know, maybe they're not married, but, you know, sitting down together and just saying, hey, so we've kind of run into this thing where, you know, Susie is calling John dad, or vice versa, if it's a mom situation, and just talking about it and just being like, hey, you know, what are your, you know, how do you feel about that? These are our thoughts on it. And giving the child the option, I think, again, like we said earlier, it gives them some say in something. And it's a unique way, I think, for them to develop a special bond with their stepchild.
Yeah. And you know what? You don't have to wait until the decision's made by the child to address this. You know, you may be in a situation, I know a lot of people who watch our podcast are like, hey, I'm about to get married, or I'm in a dating relationship and we're a blended family. There's nothing wrong with sitting down with your kiddo and having that conversation like, hey, you know, we're going to be getting married. You're going to have a new stepmom or a new stepdad. Mm-hmm. You know, we want you to be comfortable with whatever you choose to call him. Mm-hmm. You know, we want you to have a say in that. You know, what do you think you'd like to call him? You know, or what do you think you'd like to call her? You know, having that conversation beforehand. Again, children process and experience anxiety probably sometimes at a higher level than even adults do. Yeah. So getting ahead of that situation and going, hey, let's be proactive. Mm-hmm. We want to blend our family in the right way, but we know this is an issue.
Yeah.
We know through the project that a lot of people talked about this. We hear that in feedback. And then we just know as a blended family, it becomes something.
Yeah.
So we want to get you in front of that, have those conversations, and be in prayer about, kind of how you're going to receive that.
Yeah.
So, again, this is part 3 of our series on blending. This is just a small blurb into this topic. Again, we go into a much more detailed explanation and talking about this in the book, Blended and Redeemed, that'll release in September. So next week, we're going to kind of round out our series on blending our bunch, and we're going to talk about dysfunction, which I think is going to be fun because I don't care if you even teach this stuff, you have dysfunction in your blended family.
We all have dysfunction in some way.
Exactly. So again, tune in next week. We're going to be diving into that. But right now, we just hope that this has blessed you and blessed your family.
Yes, absolutely, you guys. Have a wonderful week and be blessed in all that you do.
Take care.
Hey guys, so glad you were here with us today, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
And you can find more resources from Blended Kingdom Families at blendedkingdomfamilies.com. Join us again next time as we hang out with more amazing podcast guests. And remember, nothing will be impossible with God.